All right, welcome to Lab 5 session video packet. So, this is what it looks like where we're starting off. Starting on this model right here, top picture. So, first thing you'll see is subclavius, which we're going to see right here. It runs right under the clavicle. So, the clavicle, that collarbone, runs right underneath it. That's the subclavius. Just down from it, we have the pec minor, or the pectoralis minor. You can see that going across to our second through fifth ribs. So see each little finger going to a different rib. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is the pec minor. All of this is with the pec major removed. We also have these little fingers going across here along each rib. These are the serratus anterior. Those are the serratus anterior all the way down to this last little one down here. So each rib has a serratus anterior. Okay, now we're going to shoulder girdle posterior view. Turn this guy around. You're looking at it from the back side now. So the first one is the levator scapular, which is right here. I think I'm going to have to zoom you in here. All right. You see that where the sticker is? That is the levator scapular. It goes down and would attach the scapula. Going back, we're now going to the shoulder. So the first one it points out is the trapezius. So the trapezius is a big diamond shape, but all we're seeing on the model, because what's dissected out, is this section right here as the trapezius. So in reality it goes from here down to here, up, up, and then back down through here. So you're just seeing one side of that diamond. Maybe actually if I go to this one, we'll see it better. Again, we have stuff dissected away, but we can see here's where it goes down. So we can see half the diamond this time, maybe on both sides. Okay, next we have our infraspinatus. The infraspinatus hangs out in that infraspinous fossa. So in this case, it is this one right here. We'll also see this on the arm model here in a second, but that's what it looks like, kind of with everything attached where it's supposed to be. We then have peeking out right here is the teres minor. So the teres minor is above the teres major. It's a little bit deeper. It's covered by the infraspinatus and covered by the teres major. So teres major is here, teres minor right in that crack, and infraspinatus again. Our last one is the latissimus dorsi. So the latissimus dorsi is a rather large muscle. It goes all the way to the spine. We have some of it dissected away. Comes up and gets thinner, and then goes. So there's a thin strand which connects to our humerus. All right, field trip's over. Let's go back to the other side of the room. So now we are working with our arm, if pieces don't all fall out. Okay, so here's our arm muscle model. So we are looking at the page 2, which is going to say shoulder joint. We'll start with the one that sort of looks like this. It's a posterior view, or excuse me, an anterior view. First thing it's going to show you is the subscapularis. So the subscapularis, see all these little fibers going through here? That's the subscapularis. It's marked through here. But the subscapularis fills up the subscapular fossa on the back of the scapula. Okay, we're rotating it. We now have the deltoid. So the deltoid, as we talked about in lecture, wraps all the way from the backside, that spine of the scapula, around to your clavicle. So it goes from here to here, and then all comes down and inserts onto the deltoid tuberosity about right here. So those are your deltoid muscles. So then if I take it off, this is your deltoid. It's kind of large muscle covering the shoulder. There we go. This time, go to shoulder joint posterior view, the lowermost picture in your image packet. We have the supraspinatus. It's in the supraspinous fossa, hangs out up here. Below that, we have the infraspinatus, which is this collection of fibers all going upwards into an angle. If we take this off, this one is in that infraspinous fossa, so through here. As promised, we have a teres minor and a teres major here. This is the teres minor. You can see it's a pretty normal sized muscle. Just in the models, it gets covered up a lot, where you have the deltoid over it, and then the teres major beneath it, so then it only peeks out a little bit. Either way, whether the deltoid's on or off, this right here is the teres minor. Just beneath it is that teres major. It's right here. So again, you can see it goes through there. But okay, going on to page 3. I do not know what the order of these pages are actually, because I just dropped them on the floor, so they got shuffled. But we're looking at this one. I believe this is page 3. It says upper arm anterior view at the top. So first up, we have, I'm going to take the deltoid off for these, okay? So if you look at them, you can look at that hole where the deltoid goes in to kind of orient yourself. That hole is very, very lateral. But again, there's your shoulder down to your thumb. The arm is actually twisted in the middle, so it makes lateral and medial a little hard with this model, if you aren't used to looking at it. But anyways, lateral. So looking at it from an anterior view, so we're looking at it like this. You will see right here, this is the coracobrachialis. It goes from that coracoid process down the upper arm. Hence the coracobrachialis. So coracobrachialis. We then have on the biceps, these are the biceps, removable. Look like this. As you guys know from life and culture, the biceps are right here. They're kind of a bulky muscle that sticks out. At the top, we have the heads. So biceps means two heads. So this one right here is our short head. Like I said in lecture, don't memorize it completely off just looking which one's longer or shorter on the models. That's not a good way to go about it. What you need to know is short is medial, hence it's right here, and long, which is this one right here, is lateral. So long lateral, like I said, this is a very, very lateral point. So the one right next to it is the long, because long is lateral, short is medial. We also have here, if we go, so again, it's the coracobrachialis, biceps brachii, and then we have the brachialis, which runs right here. Now going to the picture on the bottom, we have our upper arm posterior. So we're going to go to the back side. So we're back here now. We have the triceps. So the triceps kind of covers this whole section. It's the only muscle we're worried about, for the sake of this lab at least. So we have 3 heads. We have the medial. The medial is this tiny one. It's medial because it's very opposite side of that lateralmost point. So medial. Next to it, we have our long head of the triceps, which is right here. And then we have our lateral head. Again, lateral because if you look, it kind of goes to that lateral point, or this lateral side of the arm. So lateral, long, medial. Okay, we are done with the upper arm. So I'm going to take a few pieces off so they stop going. Okay. All right, so now we're going to the forearm. So the top of the page 4 says elbows, flexors, and pronators. Looks like this. Okay. So the first one has a picture that says medial view. Looks a little bit like this. So the first one is the flexor carpi ulnaris. So the flexor carpi ulnaris runs down. It's a flexor, so the flexors are on this anterior side because we flex our arm. We need these ones to shorten. So these are our flexors, anterior side. Carpi, because it goes to the carpal bones. And ulnaris, because it runs down the ulna. Now the ulna is the pinky side, as we talked about before. So pinky up. This one right here is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Our next one here is the palmaris longus. It's this one right here. As you see, it gets real thin, right where that pin is, and then it goes into the hand where you'll see it split out to the palm, hence the palmaris longus. So that's the palmaris longus. Next to it is the flexor carpi radialis, which is right here. And while we're here already, I'm going to go ahead and throw in the brachioradialis, which is, making sure I didn't tell you the wrong one. I think I did actually. I apologize. Yeah, I did tell you the wrong one. So we'll go to this one right here, which is not the brachioradialis. I apologize for saying that wrong. Brachioradialis is actually right here. But this one right here is the pronator teres. Helps pronate our arm. So it goes diagonal because pronation is a twisting motion. So pronator teres, our flexor carpi radialis, because it goes down the thumb side, the radius side, palmaris longus, flexor carpi ulnaris. Okay, apologize about the confusion. All right, going on. Our next one, it's going to point out the elbow. It's kind of faded in your image packet, at least mine. Printed, real faded. But it points to this little one right here that runs right next to the elbow. That's your elbow. This right here is the inconius. So inconius. You see how it kind of relates to all the others? It's right by the elbow. Again, we can go from the palmaris longus, flexor carpi ulnaris, and then to the inconius, which is right there. Now at the bottom, since we're still in the flexors, we're going to just continue down, and we're going to look in the forearm. So the first thing it shows is the flexor digitorum superficialis. Now the superficialis we see peeking out on either side of the palmaris longus. So here's your palmaris longus. See there's a number here and a number there. If you were looking closely, you would be able to tell those are the same numbers. I think they're both 26. That's because they both represent that flexor digitorum superficialis. peeking out either side of the palmaris longus. Again, those two numbers, both representing flexor digitorum superficialis. So for our fourth picture on this page, they dissect away all these points that we just talked about, and they look underneath, like this. First thing you're going to see is the flexor pollicis longus. Now, what do we call our thumb in anatomy? We call it the pollex. So, going to the thumb is the pollicus, flexor, so it's on the front, longus, so the flexor pollicus longus is this one, on the flexor side going down to the thumb. Our next one is the flexor digitorum profundus, which is right here. This is your flexor digitorum profundus. You can see it hanging out between this yellow nerve, this other yellow nerve, and this red artery. That is the flexor digitorum profundus. I know these are a lot, but repeat them, learn what the words are meaning, and I think they'll start to come together pretty quickly, or at least quicker than you initially expect. Okay, so now we're going to the back of the arm. So these are going to be your extensors. So I'm going to start, I don't know which one, like I said, I dropped it, so I don't know which one is actually, which page number. So we're going to start with this one that has the pronator teres up top. Talked about the pronator teres earlier. Pronator teres is the, did I pull it off? Yeah, I did. Pronator teres is this one right here, which goes across the antecubital space where you draw blood from. So it shows that one again. And then going down. So we're on the back of the hand. This is the bottom picture on that page. It has this piece removed and shows underneath. Underneath we have the extensor indicus. The extensor indicus goes to your index finger if we were to follow it down. But that is the flexor indicus right there in this little gap between the bone and our artery and nerve that run there. Our other one is the extensor pollicus longus. So the pollicus longus is just across the blood and the nerve. You have this little one right here that kind of runs into the pinhole. Do you see the number? That number represents the extensor pollicus longus. If we were to follow it, you can see it's angled this way. So if we were to follow that angle, you know where we end up? The pollex, the thumb. So the pollicus longus is right there. And we're going to the front of that page. Looks like this. We have, first, up top is the extensor carpi ulnaris. The extensor carpi ulnaris is going to be on the ulna side, going to the carpals, hence carpi ulnaris. So we have our pinky finger going up. This one, excuse me. Yep, this one right here. Sorry, I was disoriented. But the extensor carpi ulnaris is this one right here. Next to it, we have a little skinny one. Do you see that one? It's real tiny. It's minimal. It takes up very little space. It's the extensor digiti minimi. So it's very small, hence minimi, or I've heard some lecture professors call it minimi. I'm from Indiana, so minimi, but Southerners love to call it the minimi. It's that one. And then you have right next to it is the extensor digitorum manus. So this thick one right here is the extensor digitorum manus. It's probably the widest one of the ones up front, but it also goes to the digitorum, or the digits, hence the digitorum. Don't know what manus stands for, but if you look it up, it might give you a clue. Okay, at the bottom of that page, we have the extensor carpi radialis. So we're going to be on the radius side, which is up from the thumb. So we're looking at these right here. This one right here, as I mentioned earlier, is the brachioradialis. So the one right next to the brachioradialis is the extensor carpi ulnaris longus. And then the smaller or briefer space one is the extensor carpi radialis brevis. Okay, that is it for these. But I'm also going to include in this one, because for whatever reason, I only have this one as a separate document. Other instructors may have combined them. I apologize that I haven't done so yet. But this is your brachioradialis. So it's its own thing. But we talked about it already. It's the brachioradialis. So the brachioradialis is going to be this one right here. So going from the thumb, since the radius side, the brachioradialis. Now, I know I'm going to, here in a second, I'm going to go and just make my full circle around so you can see everything as we turn it. But first, I want to get on my little soapbox, give you a memory tool. I talked about this in lecture. I would imagine some of the other lecture professors talked about it, or lecture instructors during their lecture talked about this also. But brachio means upper arm. So anytime you see the word brachio, B-R-A-C-H-I-O, or I-A maybe, it's referring to the upper arm. So the three muscles that in my first year of teaching anatomy lab people mix up all the time were coracobrachialis, brachialis, and brachioradialis. So if you know this means upper arm, then you can look at the other parts and piece together where they are. So you have the coracobrachialis. Well, coraco sounds like the coracoid process that we talked about in the scapula. Brachio means upper arm. So it's probably the one that goes from the coracoid to the upper arm. So it goes from here down the upper arm. Well, sure enough, that's what it is. You have it, let me piece it back together so you can see how it all fits again. But here it is, coracoid process down the upper arm. Next one is the brachialis. All you see there is brachio with a little bit extra added onto it. Well, the brachialis is only in the upper arm. It just kind of goes through the upper arm. So in that case, you see it right here, hanging out just beneath the biceps. Upper arm, brachialis. And then our last one, which we just talked about, is the brachioradialis. So again, brachio, upper arm, radialis, sounds like radius. So it goes from the upper arm down the radius towards the thumb. Brachioradialis. The names sound very, very similar, but if you know that one little hint, you can start to think through and make sure you don't miss that one come exam day. Or in life, because I hope you develop a habit quicker, be able to think on your feet quicker if you're kind of getting them mixed up. So that's it. Like I said, I do want to just, because the muscles, the forearm, are just so tiny, I just want to kind of make the pattern as I spin it. So let me get these out because I've been getting disoriented as I spin it since I'm looking at the screen. And also because there's so many. Even though I know it, it can be tricky. Think on the spot sometimes. Okay, so we have the brachioradialis that we talked about. Now as we spin, we have the extensor carpi radialis longus, carpi radialis brevis. Then we get here. We have this one being, well, let me look at it from the front. So our first one here being, this is what I mean. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, the extensor carpi, the extensor digitorum manus, which is going to be this one. So from the manus, then we go to the minimi, and then we have our extensor carpi ulnaris right here. Up above, we have right next to the elbow, we have the inconius. Again, we keep spinning. We get to this nice one right here, going down to the pinky. So this is the flexor carpi ulnaris. We keep on going. We have our palmaris longus. On either side of the palmaris, we have the superficialis, which again is the one that we see peeking out on either side. Keep going around. We have the flexor carpi radialis as it goes to the thumb. And then we have our pronator teres, which goes across the antecubital space, makes a diagonal so we can pronate our arm. So that's those. Then if you want to go underneath them, we can have, I'll leave that one on actually. Underneath, we have the ones of the forearm, our deeper ones, which are going to include the, the flexor pollicus longus, the one that's going to the thumb. So this one right here, flexor pollicus longus, flexor secus front, pollicus going to the thumb. And then you have this one peeking out here, which is the flexor digitorum profundus. All right, going to the back, we remove this part to go deep, and underneath we have two little tiny ones. We have our, again, I want to check these because I just don't want to tell you wrong if this is your main study tool. We have the extensor indicus, which is this one right here, goes to index finger, and then right next to it in this little tiny space is the extensor pollicus longus because it cuts diagonal across to the thumb. All right, thank you for bearing with me. Everything there should be correct and checked, but hopefully this is a great study tool for you. Thanks.